Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, October 11th, 2019. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We're broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. It's Casual Friday, folks. I'm wearing my traditional soft-collared shirt. Today, also with a sweater. There's a slight chill in the air. On the program today, Benjamin Dixon from the Benjamin Dixon Show will be joining us. Also on the program, on the day that his movie releases, Tim Heidecker will be here. What's the name of the movie again?
Mr. America.
Also on the program today, Giuliani's pals, who helped investigate Joe Biden in Ukraine, arrested before trying to leave the country on a one-way ticket. Meanwhile, impeachment hits new highs in the polls, and the former Ukrainian ambassador meets with the Intel Committee today. Gordon Sondland agrees to testify. Fiona Hall, former Soviet advisor to Donald Trump, also agrees to testify. All this against Trump's wishes. Dam breaking, floodgates opening, whatever metaphor you want to use. Speaking of which, climate change is here. 2.5 million people left without power as California's PG&E spends its cash on shareholder distributions instead of power grid upkeep. Meanwhile, a UN Security Council splits on condemnation of Turkey's Syria invasion, with the U.S. and Russia refusing to condemn it. EPA weakens lead drinking water protections because
it's good for you.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a new study shows that exposure to air pollution linked to increase in violent crime.
Builds character.
State Department morale plummets as a career and senior advisor to Mike Pompeo quits in disgust. Meanwhile, Trump mad at Fox TV's polls on impeachment. So, of course, our chief law enforcement official in the country visits Rupert Murdoch. All this and more on today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It is Friday. Thank you for being with us. Just a tremendous amount of information in terms of the impeachment inquiry that is happening. We will talk about that with Ben Dixon in a moment, as well as talking about the Turkish invasion of Syria, where we already have reports of hundreds, I think, of Kurdish civilians already killed, which could just be the beginning, frankly. But we will get to that later in the program. The exposure to air pollution linked to increase in violent crime. People will know that for a while it was my bailiwick to talk about. It was actually a piece that Kevin Drum had written that brought together a bunch of research that showed that crime dropped precipitously, not just in this nation, but around the world, about 20 to 25 years after lead gasoline was outlawed in specific places. And so far as I can tell, it has been the best answer as to the question as to why crime has dropped so precipitously across the country. There are certain areas where it is not at the same rate, but to the extent that there is any type of trend across the country, I mean, the murder rates in most of the big cities around the country have dropped significantly. Now, the other issues, of course, are lead as it gets into you through water, and the EPA has just made that a little bit easier for at least people living in poverty. I mean, let's be honest. When we talk about these things, they impact people living in poverty far more than anyone else. And I imagine also you can find lots of deposits of lead paint still that have not been remediated in many urban centers, particularly the older ones. But this latest study just looks at air pollution more generally. And, you know, I'll just top line it for you. Their findings basically are, this is as discussed by, I guess, one of the researchers from Colorado State University. Story is, when you're exposed to more pollution, you become marginally more aggressive. So those altercations, some things that may not have escalated, do escalate. That's basically it. And that's, they don't, in the research, show how that happens necessarily, but they're only looking statistically, showing a strong correlative relationship between such crimes and levels of air pollution. Now, there needs to be a lot more study about this, but just one more unintended consequence of clean air. Not just the health benefits, as you know, as we understand health, but also benefits in terms of like people's brains and their ability to socialize with other people. So there's that. Also, moving on, let's, as you know, Steven Crowder is, is still reeling from the revelations that he got cold feet and was afraid to debate me at the Blanket.con and on Gavin McGinnis's show. And so different celebrities have been weighing in on this. And I have to say that I really appreciate, I want to do the other one, not this one. And I just want to say I really appreciate the support from some of these people, many of whom I don't even know. I've never met Scaramucci. I've met Jesse Lee Peterson. My understanding is that was played the other day. Who else did we hear from? Who was the first one that did it?
Tommy Lauren.
Tommy Lauren. I've yet to meet her. Kevin Sorbo. I'm obviously familiar with his work. I've never met him.
Me and him went to the same college.
And I've never met this woman here. But of course, I've admired her work since I was younger. I can't remember exactly when I first saw her work, but I give you D. Williams, who, excuse me? Oh, D. Wallace. Sorry. Who has got a message for Steven Crowder.
Hi, Steven. This is Dee Wallace. I was the mom in E.T. And your dad is telling me that there are people bullying you and calling you cold feet because you won't mix it up with this big kid named Sam. And I just want you to know I'm really proud of you for knowing who you are and for really sticking to what you believe about yourself and what's right. That's what E.T. did. He kept his heart open. And, you know, sometimes when kids make fun of us like that, it's because they feel really insecure within themselves. So you just keep knowing who you are And you know that your daddy's there loving you and protecting you. And you follow E.T.'s example and just keep your heart open. Good luck, baby. You can do this.
Stephen, phone home. Phone home. Phone home.
Wow.
Should we play?
so
Should we do
nice.
double up, or should we save that one for?
I mean, I'm always all for doubling up.
Okay.
That was so heartwarming. And I would say, if we're doing this, we might as well play the Scaramucci one again.
No, well, we don't have too much time, but folks,
We'll watch it later.
It wasn't just that it was, some people are sweeter than others to Stephen, who has COVID. This is not sweet. This is a little bit disturbing. Why Stephen Crowder would get a message from Chris Hansen, I don't know. But it does raise some questions about Crowder. Let's check in with Chris Hansen from To Catch a Predator.
Hello, Stephen. Chris Hansen here of Hansen vs. Predators, and To Catch a Predator, maybe I should call you by your secret screen name. Cold Feet 69 doesn't want to debate Sam. Very suspicious, very predator-like. Maybe you need these thermal socks here. I use them for catching my predators in the cold weather. Anyway, I was going through some transcripts the other day, Stephen, and it appears that you're afraid to debate Sam. Well, at least that's what he says, and that's what the transcripts say. So I'm going to need you to have a seat, and even if you need cue cards, well, your daddy might be able to help you. Anyway, buck up, sonny boy. Get ready for the debate. I think you can handle it. And remember, I'll be watching. All right, take care.
Yep, so there it is. Stephen, you're getting both sort of like an encouragement and a slight threat.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, good cop, bad cop situation. But Stephen, I hope you. I mean, I got to imagine that maybe you'll be looking at these, and I just want you to know that I, in no way, have solicited any of these superstars to send these messages. And
These aren't all your Hollywood pals?
no, these are not all my Hollywood pals.
Man, every day, every morning I wake up, I'm so excited to know which celebrity is going to jump on the bandwagon today.
There's a lot of people, I guess in the liberal Hollywood elite that are really looking to Stephen Crowder to buck up a little bit. We'll see. Folks, do you have a dog that you rescued? Have you wondered about what breed it is? Well, sometimes it's fun to have a magical mystery pup, but finding out what kind of breed it is can help you provide a better quality life for your furry friend. Embark Dog DNA Test is the best-in-class dog DNA test. We have had Edie. This is Kelly's, old Kelly. She's not old, but I mean, she was formerly Kelly. Well, she's still Kelly. But
I was going to say, really?
She used to work on the show, and we used to hear about Edie all the time. This is what she had to say about her experience with Embark. She wrote, I recently received Edie's results from Embark, and there's so much information about her. She tested clear for all 171 genetic health conditions they screen for, and she's not a carrier or risk for any of the genetic diseases they test for. There's also a full clinical trait report. So much great news, but most importantly, I can provide the report to her vet, which will provide so much information to help Edie's health as she grows up. And we've gotten emails from listeners, one really touching story about just how important their pet was to this guy's brother, and who had some social issues, and the dog became obviously a huge asset in terms of like him being able to relate to other people, and they could really feel like, by getting a genetic testing, that they were treating this dog, feeding the dog properly, watching screening for any particular possible diseases the dog will get, so that the dog can live as long of a life as possible because they're obviously incredibly close to their dog. Embark's test is worth it. It's the most comprehensive kit on the market. It was developed by doctors and veterinarians. It tests for over 250 breeds and 170 genetic health conditions. Apparently, some competitors can get down to only 12% of a breed mix detection. Embark's DNA test kit is accurate to 5% breed component in a mixed breed's dog's ancestry. And it's fun to know what your dog ancestry is. But again, it's also another way to provide the optimal health and treatments for your dog. Embark has an exclusive offer for our listeners. Go to embarkvet.com. Use the promo code majority. Save 15% off your dog DNA test kit. That's EmbarkVet, EMBARKVET. EmbarkVet.com. Promo code majority. Check it out. Lastly, before we go to Ben Dixon, here is Donald Trump. Basically in Minnesota last night at a rally, and you're familiar with this Coliseum, is that right?
Yeah, Target Center. It's where the Timberwolves play.
And you had a comment to say about how many is that seat?
Probably like 20,000.
And
you'll notice in these clips we play, they don't ever pan up above into the upper deck. And there's another clip floating around Twitter, maybe we'll play it later, that shows that there wasn't people up there.
I mean, he's not getting the number of people at the rallies as he used to. That's quite clear. Now maybe his show's just worn off, whatever, but it's an indication that maybe Trump is not as formidable as he once was. But these folks really apparently have a problem with refugees.
For many years, leaders in Washington brought large numbers of refugees to your state from Somalia without considering the impact on schools and communities and taxpayers. I promise you that as president, I would give local communities a greater say in refugee policy and put in place enhanced vetting and responsible immigration controls. And I've done that. Since coming into office, I have reduced refugee resettlement by 85%. And as you know, maybe especially in Minnesota, I kept another promise. I issued an executive action making clear that no refugees will be resettled in any city or any state without the express written consent of that city or that state. So speak to your mayor.
Yeah, he sounds a little tired, a little strained, his voice. Meanwhile,
there's also some odd, it could mean absolutely nothing, but some odd physicality there. I'll just leave it at that.
A little bit. Meanwhile, on Twitter, somebody writes that no refugees will be placed in any city or state without the explicit consent of your governor or mayor, so ask your mayor about that. And Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, wrote on Twitter, consent given. Immigrants and refugees are welcome in Minneapolis. Good for him. There it is. Donald Trump is speaking to a narrow band of people. I'm not going to say all white people. That's just a coincidence. That's all we can see in the frame. Although they really do plan. They really do, pick and choose who's going to stand behind him at these events, as they do with all politicians. And so there it is. This is what he's going to be running on. And that, and apparently, the treasonous folks who are using this newfangled device called impeachment. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, Ben Dixon. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program the proprietor of the Benjamin Dixon Show, Ben Dixon. Ben?
Sam, how are you, man? So good to be with you.
Great to be with you, too. Thanks for joining us. I am getting a little bit of a feedback on that. I'm not sure from you. I'm not sure what that is, if that's it.
Yeah, let me see if I can fix that real.
Okay.
How's it sound?
I think that's better. Yeah, that's better. Great.
Okay, great.
So Ben, I want to talk about impeachment and Syria. Let's just start with impeachment. It's been pretty stunning. Just starting with I guess the polling on some level. We're now at a Fox poll came out the other day. 51% of people want Donald Trump, the impeachment inquiry, to go forward. Right. And we have a poll from the Washington Post. 58% support the inquiry. 49% support removing Trump already. Only 38% oppose. Fox News, says 51% should impeach Trump and remove him from the presidency. That's Fox News. I mean, so it's hard to know exactly what the numbers are, but the trend is pretty clear. You have a majority of people at this point support impeachment in some fashion or another, and it has been a pretty significant turnaround, a swing in some instances of like 20 points, in other instances like 10. I mean, what's your sense?
I think the first thing is that it speaks to the power of the establishment. Nancy Pelosi finally coming on board with impeachment. We saw a big shift just in some of the Democrats who were afraid to step out front. I think you're going to find not only just Democrats coming on board, but you're also finding some Republicans. Of course, you could never expect Republicans to be on board with this fully, but the polling shows that there's some Republicans out there, whether they'll admit it publicly or not, they're admitting it to posters, that they're willing to get rid of the president. And I think what we're seeing, Sam, we're seeing a more erratic behavior from him because of that. He might pretend on Twitter that nothing is happening, but behind the scenes, they know what's going on.
It's pretty fascinating, and I keep using this analogy about what happened when Pelosi signed on. It was just basically, from just my years as a director, you shoot a subject, and the reaction shot is basically you telling the audience how they should respond to what they've just seen. Mm-hmm. And exactly. Nancy Pelosi gave, the American public, the vast majority of whom don't, do deep dives into this, basically gave them a reaction shot, which is, what he just did rose to the level of impeachment. And everybody was like, okay. I mean, it's not a hard sell, right? I mean, right. On some level, she was suppressing this, and there's a big question out there now that the Trump administration came back with a letter that was really sort of stunning. Yeah. Basically saying they don't believe in impeachment, which is, I just want this to marinate with people. This is basically saying we don't believe in the separate. It's not like we're finagling it. It's like we don't believe in the separation of powers or the checks and balances, or we don't believe, in the First Amendment. I mean, impeachment is very explicit in the Constitution, and they're saying this is illegitimate because Pelosi has not called for a vote on the inquiry to empower the committees to have subpoena power that they would under impeachment. But that rule changed some time ago, before this session, and she doesn't need to do it. They have the power to subpoena under an impeachment inquiry, and they're just looking for any type of excuse. But it's pretty stunning, and that they're just going to try and ignore this.
Yeah, what's surprising about this, Sam, is that they are being forced. Nancy Pelosi and Congress, they're going to be forced to use the full power of the Congress here. Donald Trump is going to call. I don't think it's a bluff, but he's going to push them over and over and over again. He's going to block them at every turn because he just does not believe that he's subject to their to checks and balances. He honestly does believe that he's above the law. I know everyone says that, but we're seeing it in action. And in that kind of environment, while everyone would like to just be able to go to brunch, everyone would just like to have business as usual, they are literally going to be forced to use the full force of Congress. They're going to have to not only issue these subpoenas, but hold people in contempt of Congress, because if they don't, then they are demonstrating and they're complicit with Donald Trump's assertion that the presidency, the executive branch, is above the rest of them.
And the real question is like, how do they enforce this contempt? Now, there is this concept of inherent contempt that Congress has. They have a jail. They can fine people. Mark Pocan came out with, floated the other day, we can just stop paying Pompeo until he comes in. I think there's going to be more of that. I spoke to former Congressman Brad Miller the other day, and part of the problem is the lapse of the Independent Counsel Statute Act doesn't provide for sort of criminal to pursue criminal charges outside of the DOJ, and we have a real major problem at the DOJ right now.
Right.
You have this situation where it's quite clear that Rudy Giuliani is in legal jeopardy. I mean, he is being investigated right now by members of the Southern District of New York. This is the U.S. Attorney's Office in Southern District of New York. This is part of the Department of Justice. You have Rudy Giuliani being investigated for his work in going around Ukraine and trying to develop this narrative about 2016. There's another person who went around on behalf of Donald Trump trying to debunk the key parts of the Mueller report. And that person is Bill Barr. And that person happens to be in charge of the Department of Justice. So, I mean, he should be recusing himself right now and appointing a special prosecutor like a Robert Mueller again to start investigating Rudy Giuliani. I mean, how do you have the Department of Justice investigating Rudy Giuliani when Bill Barr was part of this whole thing?
Yeah, that's the entire cluster F that we're dealing with here, right? There is the mechanisms are technically in place for them to hold the executive branch accountable, but now we're seeing the real test of it, right? Where do they go from here? How will they implement a contempt of Congress? They're going to have to do something, though. So they're going to have to come up with a strategy of how we are going to address this, because they don't have the option of not doing anything. The option of not doing anything is going to enshrine really a dictatorial executive branch. One that Donald Trump has already hinted towards that he's already preparing to say that the election in 2020 is not valid. And so if they don't draw the line here and how they do it, that's going to be up to their advisors. That's going to be up to all the machinations that they're going to go through. But they have to do something. They have to respond to Donald Trump's desire, just really asserting himself to be above the law. If Congress does not have an answer to this, then we have a bigger problem on our hand in the long run.
Yeah, I think so. And I think investigating it, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold anybody criminally liable at this point. I mean, I guess we're going to wait and see. But certainly investigating it and going through, and even if it's just going through the motions and voting to impeach sends an important signal. I mean, just to keep everybody up to date with what's happened literally in the past 24 hours. You have two associates of Rudy Giuliani who were hired by him, apparently, to do some of the digging up of Biden material in Ukraine. These people apparently were also involved in buying influence from everyone from Pete Sessions to others to further a whole host of agenda items involving the Russians, involving Ukrainian oligarchs, and they're getting charged on federal elections violations. They were about to get on a plane. Apparently, the Southern District of Manhattan, of New York, I should say, did not want to reveal this, but apparently they got tipped off in some fashion and were about to take a one-way ticket to Europe. Now, who knows how they got tipped off, right? This is a problem that we have with the DOJ now. And so the Southern District of New York, which must have had these guys under surveillance, went and basically arrested them. Meanwhile, just about 10 minutes ago, the ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, she was the one who was fired because she wouldn't pressure the Ukrainians to dig up stuff on Biden. She says that Trump pressured the State Department to remove her. She just said that in testimony now. The House has subpoenaed Rick Perry, who's involved in some of this, and it's starting to look like Hunter Biden. The big problem with Hunter Biden is that he was actually sitting on a board and preventing buddies of Giuliani and Perry, who wanted to be on that board, to move it in a different direction. They're still digging on that. It was announced today that Gordon Sondland, who was the EU ambassador, or is the EU ambassador, who was sort of like bizarrely named to be in charge of Ukraine, maybe because there was nobody there, they didn't appoint anybody. He has agreed to testify even though Trump doesn't want him to, because I imagine he's starting to feel like he might have some criminal exposure. We know that that Trump's former Russian advisor, Fiona Hall, is going to testify, and she's going to say that Giuliani was running some type of shadow policy with Ukraine. And Congress has now asked Bill Taylor. Bill Taylor, just to remind people, was one of the guys with Sondland and who was on this this text message thread about the pressure being applied to Zelensky in Ukraine. Bill Taylor's the one who ended in September by saying, as we discussed as I said on the phone last night, he's saying this to Gordon Sondland, I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign. And then Sondland said, I don't know what you're talking about. The words quid pro quo were never used. I mean, this stuff is like, it's like Fargo, sort of. It reminds me of just some fumbling criminals. But now it's all out in the open, and it feels like the floodgates have opened now.
So, but that's the thing, though. So any one single thing that you just listed, right, in the hands of the Republican Party and a Democratic president would have been enough for a full impeachment, and they would have drawn that one detail out. And this is part of Trump's. This is what makes him almost above the law, is that he's the master of just the floodgates. He just pours it out. You'll notice that he made the appeal to China to help with the election or help with the investigation. And he does that intentionally so that it's almost like, you thought that was bad, look at this. And he tries to muddy the water where people just kind of throw up their hands and say, what's the difference? That's really what he's an expert at. And the counterpoint to that is whether or not the Democrats can take any one of his transgressions and leverage it to the point where we actually can hold him accountable. I think we're headed in the right direction. I did have some concerns about how they're proceeding, whether or not they should only focus on Ukraine. But as the Ukrainian story unfolds, there's just so much there that I think that there may be sufficient enough evidence involved here to actually start holding the president accountable. Now, does that mean a full impeachment and a trial in the Senate? I don't know how this plays out in the long run. But it's there. It's been there. The cookie has been his hand has been in the cookie jar since day one. But that's how he gets away with it. He just keeps doubling down. And our system is not designed to handle this. And I think that's what we have to answer right now is, how do we handle when democracy puts someone in power who is a direct threat to democracy?
I mean, I have never been one of those people who's taken anything seriously about Donald Trump's not going to leave. But I do think the problem is going to be Bill Barr. And Bill Barr is not going to leave, I don't think, until Donald Trump is out there. And I think Bill Barr will go to any lengths to attempt to justify this. And it's just going to be, it's going to be nuts to see how this goes down. I mean, because this is presuming, of course, that if there is a Senate trial, I mean, I think it's a fait accompli at this point that he's going to be impeached. The question is how are the Democrats going to do it?
Right.
It seems to me that there is no, as far as I can tell, and tell me if you've read something different anywhere or are aware of anything different. I don't know if there's a one way to do impeachment. In other words, I don't know if you need to present all 7, 10, 15, 20, 28 articles of impeachment simultaneously. Like, I don't know if you can't say, like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to impeach him on this article right now. We're going to impeach him on extortion and inviting foreign assistance in a political campaign, right? Just in terms of Ukraine. We're going to impeach him on that. And then we're going to start investigation on the next thing. And we're going to impeach him on that. Maybe it's, I don't know. Maybe they find stuff about Turkey. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're going to impeach him on that. And then we're going to impeach him on the emoluments. And then we're going to impeach him on whatever it is, obstruction. And as outlined in the Mueller investigation. And we're gonna, and then at the end of that process, we're gonna deliver all 8, 10 impeachment counts of impeachment to the Senate. In other words, like, do they have to do this all at once, or can they do it one step at a time? Which to me seems like the best course of action. And then send it all to the Senate in April and say, okay, which one of you are going to stand up and vote on these? And it's also going to make it harder for the Republicans because I think, they're nervous about this. They don't want to take a vote on this right now. And that's why I think Donald Trump is pushing for this vote, this House-wide vote on whether to have an impeachment inquiry, because he wants to force the Republicans to be on his side. And if he does it now, this is at his maximum leverage point. It's going to get a lot less as more information comes out.
Yeah, Sam, I actually have not heard any strategy like that, anything for or against the validity of that. The critical thing that you said in there is that while they will impeach, investigate, nothing will be delivered to the Senate until everything is delivered to the Senate, because otherwise it will create a fatigue. It will create victory after victory after victory for the president. So, but for them to have a pile of a series of impeachments for them to sort through, number one, that's going to take them some time to do so. But then two, it makes them take a stand behind Donald Trump on issue by issue, not a single overall impeachment, but impeachment of this. And actually, I think that is a brilliant strategy. And all jokes aside, I hope somebody's listening to this episode. If they don't have that strategy in place already, I think that definitely would be the way to go.
So meanwhile, let's talk about what's taking place with northern Syria. It is, I mean, we could be on the precipice of a massive ethnic cleansing, arguably genocide, with Turkey going in. There's 2 million Kurds, I think, living in that area. They have already basically announced their intentions to occupy, but first they need to obviously they're going to bomb the hell out of these people. And there's already been a couple hundred civilian casualties. I mean, this is on top of, we should say, the Syrian civil war has taken tens upon tens of thousands of lives. I mean, more, and it's been horrific. The point here is that the Kurds were basically promised by the United States that we would protect them, and we had a a deal with them essentially, and we've
Right.
abandoned them. And at the UN Security Council, there was an attempt to condemn Turkey's moves, and as far as I can tell, 2 of the members of the Security Council voted to not condemn. Each voting member has a veto power on the Security Council, and those 2 countries were the United States and Russia. I mean, who knows?
I knew who it was before you said it. Before
Well-
I didn't even know that happened, but I knew it was going to be the United States and Russia who vetoed it.
I mean, I don't know if Donald Trump is, I don't think that Donald Trump is a puppet of Vladimir Putin, but he certainly does a lot of things that are in Russia's best interest. Now, that's not necessarily bad for the world. It's maybe just a tremendous coincidence. But what's interesting, too, is that it has come out, New York Times had a story yesterday, I guess, that Rex Tillerson and Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani were in the Oval Office. This is before Giuliani was Trump's personal lawyer. Giuliani was looking for the release of a jailed client who was an Iranian-Turkish gold trader as part of a potential prisoner swap with Turkey. Now, people got to remember, too, that Flynn had a lot of involvement with Turkey, too. He was basically on their payroll and not only lobbying for them, but was talking about possibly kidnapping this guy, Gulen, who is a religious leader. I mean, I think there's arguments as to whether this guy has been up to sort of like some shady stuff with some of his charter schools, but it doesn't necessarily warrant a extraordinary rendition by the chief national security advisor of the country in some type of like Rambo style operation with his son. I mean, this is just bizarre stuff. But Giuliani and Michael Mukasey, also a piece of garbage. And similarly, I remember when he was appointed Attorney General under the Bush administration, you had the same establishment types going like, he's a straight shooter. And as soon as he got in, everybody was like, oh, wait, no, he's not. And same thing with, there was a lot of Bill Barr talk like that as well. Just a side note, legal profession needs to deal with itself on some level. But I mean, it's true. There's some real problem there that they can't make assessments about this. This is just sort of nuts, how deep this may run. And the idea that this is the only, this is the one time that Donald Trump's administration just sort of stepped out of line. I mean, right?
It's as sad as comical. When you think of the actual cost, right, actual lives that are being taken right now as we speak, that's the tragedy of this, right? And the depth to which these ties go, like where does it really end? Because you did bring that back to my remembrance about Michael Flynn and his deal with this covert extradition that they were trying to do, which actually was tied directly to the Kurdish movement there, insurrection there in Turkey. I'm not sure how deep this goes. Right. But before we even think about how deep it goes, really just think about how callously and carelessly the president of the United States opened up the floodgates, not only to the possibility of genocide and ethnic cleansing, but also to the resurgence of ISIS. Right. And the fact that in a whim, it was almost like a whimsical phone call that he just turned the world on its head overnight. That's number one. But then number two, it does look like there's a level of connections that go so deep that you have to really take a step back and look at this holistically. Like, while Turkey is a NATO ally, with Donald Trump in office and the way Erdogan carries himself, you really have to think about the possibility that there is a desire for a realignment away from NATO in favor of Putin. Now, this isn't to say that like you said, this is not saying Donald Trump is doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin. And this is not to say that NATO is above reproach, that we can't criticize NATO. But as you look at everything as it's laid out, if you remember 2015, when Turkey accidentally, or quote unquote, accidentally shot down a Russian fighter, you would have thought that would have created a divide, but it actually opened up the door for closer relationships between Turkey and Russia. And so we have a lot of things that are going on in the background that paint a bigger picture of something that's happening, right? However strategists or analysts want to categorize it, something is happening. But the immediate result of it is the fact that thousands of people are potentially going to be killed. As we speak, they're dying.
And we should make something clear, too. This is not Donald Trump taking our troops out of Syria. This is Donald Trump just moving anywhere from 100 to 1,000 troops to a different part of Syria. That's all that's going on here. No troops are coming home. There are troops just moving around, and that's it.
And Sam, can I also point to that point? They are close enough to the actions that they are now reporting their frustration and their anger watching their comrades die.
Yep.
Right. They are close enough. These American troops have not come home, but they're close enough to the action where they want to help the people that they have been fighting side by side with, but they cannot because of orders from the president of the United States. Now, this is an interesting thing, right? We're going to see a huge divide because of this. We're already starting to see it with the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham finally growing a backbone, and we'll see to what extent he actually grew one. But, even in terms of the military in general, it is the Republican Party and it's the Republican president that has betrayed not only our allies, but the spirit, if you celebrate that type of thing, the spirit of the American soldier. He is betraying it, and they are seeing it. They're tasting it. They could see their comrades dying, and there's nothing they can do about it. The long-term ramifications of this, obviously, the most important thing are the lives and the genocide, but also the politics of it. Like, how does this actually play out for the Republican Party in the long run when they are actively betraying the troops?
Well, I mean, if the Democrats can't win in these circumstances, well, look,
they need to dissolve the party.
Well, I mean, it's not just a function of the Democrats' failure. Now, I think it'll be largely a part of that. It's just, the idea that there isn't like a clear, just the way that they're handling impeachment. With Nancy Pelosi sort of driving with the brakes on, it's like, you know what? If you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You just got to go for it at this point. If you're doing it. And of course you had to. So once you're forced into this situation, you got to reorient yourself and come up with your plan B. And begin to provide, just as people who want to report on this stuff, I'm just wondering, like, why is there not a committee, a staffer who is basically providing, creating some type of website with a clearinghouse of all the information that they're doing. Why do we have to go to disparate places to find out where all the deadlines are for Rudy Giuliani's subpoena, for Rick Perry's subpoena, for Pompeo's subpoena? I want to know when these things are deadlines. Manage this process. With all that said, it's also quite possible that our country is full of too many people who have no problem with this stuff. And they just don't care. They just don't care. I mean, I saw a report. There's a Wall Street Journal article today about people going to, reporters going to these counties that have voted Republican for I don't know, for decades. And, but they're getting hit hard. I mean, hit hard by all the trade war stuff. And the quote was something like, "We don't know if we can afford to vote for Donald Trump again." And it's like, what?
Right.
You're willing to take a beating in terms of your own sort of subsistence to vote for him, but you're just not sure you can take this much of a beating. People are voting based upon these sort of very odd cues, and we can imagine what those cues may be, even in the most sort of favorable light, they're terribly misguided, that's in the most favorable light, but fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say about that, Sam, is that there's a level of high transcends everyone's best interest, and we're seeing that's what we're living in. There's no way to explain being willing to vote for someone who you can see materially damages your well-being except for the fact that they have some sense of utility. They have some sense of victory that they get for voting for their red team or their blue team. But you said a mouthful, man, that really makes a person just take a second and really think about how screwed up we are as a country when we can see, and we see it all the time. Like, this is no surprise. We saw it with the first images that came out of the Syrian civil war. We see it now with the betrayal of the Kurds, with school shootings on a regular basis. Like, we get desensitized to a whole lot of things, and we don't do anything about it, while simultaneously we're hypersensitive about things that are kind of irrelevant. Right. So as long as we can go to brunch, everything will be fine. Meanwhile, the world is starting to burn around us.
Ben Dixon, the Benjamin Dixon Show. People check it out on YouTube, or go to, what is it, BenjaminDixonShow.com?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the BenjaminDixonShow.com or YouTube is fine.
Ben, always a pleasure. Thanks, man.
All right, take care, Sam.
We're losing them a little bit there towards the end, folks. Sorry about that. All apologies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the next part of our program. We're going to be talking to Tim Heidecker of Tim and Eric's Awesome Show, from Decker, from On Cinema, At the Cinema, and now Mr. America. We'll be right back. Play I Am a Cock.
I couldn't find it.
What? Damn,
it's not on the SoundCloud anymore.
Son of a... All right. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a real honor to welcome to the program someone whose work I have appreciated for years. Yes. He... First, maybe you saw them on Tim and Eric's Awesome Show, or Decker, or On Cinema, At the Cinema, and now Mr. America. Tim Heidecker, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me time during there's so much for you to talk about, I'm sure.
What do you mean?
Insane. Well, there just seems to be a lot going on, a lot of activity in the news.
Would you say? Just a little bit.
I don't know. It's crazy, but thank you for giving me this opportunity to shamelessly plug my garbage.
I'm going to tell you that I have not been this excited to see a movie since Skyfall was announced. Now, Skyfall turned out to be not good. I went to it, like, for me at that time when my kids were young, to go and take 3 hours to watch it, I was really bummed. But I am so psyched to see your movie. We're gonna play the trailer.
Okay.
This is so up, I think, this audience's alley.
Yeah.
But here it is.
All the chips are in on this. Everything's on the line financially, emotionally. Tim Heidecker. And I think we have a very good chance of winning. I'm running for San Bernardino District Attorney.
Oh, okay.
I'm coming out here talking to voters.
Oh, okay, for DA.
Yes, for District Attorney. I've said that 3 times now. You want an outsider to come in and shake things up because San Bernardino has gotten to be so corrupt. All these numbers, you see that it's just up, and that's all crime. If you commit a crime on my watch, you're going to jail. Forever. That's the community we want to create.
In large sections of San Bernardino County, Mr. Heidecker is persona non grata.
You had no right to be here after what you did.
I have permission from First Amendment.
He is perceived as a murderer who got away with it.
He disobeyed me. It's murder.
See that justice is done. Convict this individual.
As far as the DA goes, this Rossetti has turned out to be a total rat. And I don't know how you find these people, if you elect them or not, but maybe he'll have some competition next time. Hey, Rossetti! Oh, Vincent Rossetti, district attorney in San Bernardino, is trying to kill me. It's attempted murder happening right here.
I think Tim's running for DA because he just wants to get revenge.
I am District Attorney Vincent Rossetti.
What's happening with the GoPro?
It's GoFundMe. I got it set up. Most of the time, GoFundMe is for people who are like sick or poor or starving. I really shouldn't technically be doing this, but...
He's running for district attorney, which is not going to really happen because he's not a lawyer. He doesn't live in San Bernardino.
Hey, Greg, stay out of my movie. Now that the race is tightening, can we put this in your window? We see the rat beginning to cower. He's hiding in some rat hole. He has to answer for his crimes. Come on. It's starting to feel real.
This is not going to cut it.
Knowing that it's only a few steps away. If I'm not on the ballot, how am I supposed to compete?
He doesn't have a chance.
From becoming not only district attorney, but hopefully even higher. I hope I have your vote.
That looks so awesome.
Sounded good. I wasn't. It sounds like a good trailer. I'm just listening to it.
It's one of those movies that I feel like you don't even have to see. You can just listen to the whole movie, and that's it. Right. So tell us. And I should say, like, I watched, obviously I haven't seen the movie. I've just seen these clips. And folks, it's released today on all the major streaming platforms.
Right.
But I see, like, a little bit of Mike Cernovich in there.
Yes.
In the moments, like, where, you're holding the selfie stick and claiming that you're being attempted murder. There's Trump in there to some extent. I mean, tell us, like, I
know. Where do we start? How do we get into this is the question you're circling around.
Exactly.
How do we approach this? There's so many angles, so many ways to get in. All I can do is try to help.
All right. Well, tell us for those folks who aren't familiar with On the Cinema and At the Cinema, just give us the arc of how the movie, like, sort of like, the basic synopsis.
Yeah. So let me try if I could do it. I should be better at this, but I'm not. We've been doing On Cinema for a while. It's basically like Siskel and Ebert, except, well, in that case, those guys didn't seem to like each other either, but it's sort of this soap opera that's been going on for years where we sort of glibly talk about movies, but really it's a device to tell just crazy stories about my character, who's always kind of getting caught up in some scheme or some pyramid scheme or scam, or and he's just a pretty bad guy who naturally dovetails into the sort of Trump wave and becomes a Trump supporter. And I'm making sure I'm still in the air. Can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can still hear you.
Okay,
no, of course.
You know when you do those calls and suddenly it's just so quiet and you're like, I think I'm just talking to nobody right now.
Well, I can't assure you that there's anybody besides me who is listening, but I'm here.
Just every 30 seconds, give me a or
all right, I'll give you those. Or just a beep. Maybe we'll just do a beep or something.
Boop. You are still live. So anyway, my character had eventually gotten in trouble with the law for putting on an EDM festival where he handed out vaporizers which had poisonous content in them, which ended up killing 19 teenagers.
Now we should be clear.
This was before. Yeah, I know. This was done before any of this stuff showed up in the news.
Do you think that they got the idea to use tainted vape stuff from hearing about your movie?
I'm certainly not going to speak on the record about that. That seems incriminating. But no, I mean, I think Greg and I are always kind of paying attention to some of the subculture stuff going on and noticing when things. I know Greg a few years ago was really irate about these EDM festivals where kids were overdosing, and it seemed very unsupervised. And
right.
I think we tapped into that, and also vaping was just popping up everywhere, and we're kind of just laughing at the silliness of it. But those two things kind of crossed paths. And my character was put on trial. He ended up defending himself and technically we had a hung jury, which appeared as a 5-hour mock trial that appeared on Adult Swim that people can watch. And the result of that was that he decided to run for district attorney of San Bernardino, which is where the trial took place, to oust the current district attorney who tried him as a revenge campaign. So that's the backstory that sets it up for.
And let me just be clear with so that people understand it. So the storyline went along on the show, and then it just sort of jumped mediums into the documentary. How is there a story how do you explain? Do you even address that in the context of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, sort of. It's complicated. We didn't set out to make a movie that was going to come out this way. We kind of went off and said, we'll just make another piece of media in the way that the trial existed on Adult Swim. We decided to take it from the perspective of if a young filmmaker followed these guys around, mostly the stuff we make in the show is sort of made by us or made by our characters. And we said, it'll be interesting to see how these people would look from an outsider's perspective. And so we created a fictitious filmmaker that would follow us around, and then sort of did our best to set it up for the audience. And we ended up making this thing that felt really funnier than we thought it was going to be, and more kind of it felt, kind of, I hate to say the word important. Also, I'll say the word very important.
Right. It's 2 words.
It just felt timely, and maybe that it could play outside of just the audience of the show. Which we're kind of seeing that's happening. Although, some people are going to miss it, are going to miss what we're doing. But we set it up in the movie to kind of explain who these characters are. But so it's kind of doing two things. On one level, it's kind of this character study. It's kind of a political satire. It's a look at how, candidates now can probably scoot by without very little experience or without very little aptitude for being in the elected office. But it also shows the comments we've gotten from people that have seen it were it was kind of comforting, because my character, not to give anything away, my character loses and fails throughout the entire movie. It's never presented as oh no, this bad guy is winning, because it sort of was like a comfort food movie for people that want to see how things ought to be, maybe. Some people said it was nice to see this sort of Trumpian, boorish dope lose, throughout the movie. So it's working on that level. And then for the fans of On Cinema, it's chock full of, references, and it plays into the narrative of that show on a bigger level as well.
Have you, it's particularly the On Cinema, and then obviously into the movies, gets very directly, I guess, associated with the politics of the day. Have you always been, has your work always been sort of politically oriented? I mean, how did you start? Did you start as a stand-up?
Me? No. Eric and I we went to film school together and made a lot of short films and kind of artsy kind of things, and little animations. And so we came up that way. We were not political. I don't think, in some ways our show was a little political in that it was very satirical of culture and the corporate, mass marketed hell mall world that we live in. But not, we sort of went the other direction from, the Daily Show kind of commenting on stuff of the day.
Right.
But I don't know. I think in the past 5 to 6 years, I've always been interested in politics and found it important to at least shape my life. But it stayed out of my work. But as you know, listen, the past 5 or 6 years have been insane, and it feels almost impossible to divorce it from at least my own creativity. And you know, some people aren't interested in that, but it's kind of just the direction things go. But you know, in this movie, people note that we never say the word Donald Trump, and yet it's all over the place. You know,
right?
So it's not only on our minds, but it's on everybody's minds. And I think artists right now, you know, it's sort of like it would be almost weird to not bring it into your work in some way. So here we are.
And you went to the RNC with Vic Berger too, didn't you? Didn't you take him down there?
I dragged him down there by his curly little head. Said, "You do this. You get it. You go talk to Alex Jones." No, we went to both of them. Yeah, we just went down there with a couple cameras, and I remember he did get to talk to Alex Jones. We got up to him and was asking him about why Chubby Checker isn't in the Hall of Fame. He didn't know what to say to that.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
How did you hook up?
I don't know what I would say.
How did you and Vic hook up?
Well, this is convenient to talk about Vic because he was an early fan of On Cinema, and I noticed him. He was making these music videos about characters on Cinema, like these little and full songs that were like about characters from the show, and they were very rudimentary. The songs were actually really good because he's like, I think first and foremost a really good songwriter, believe it or not. But he put these videos up, and we loved them. And it was still early days with that show, and people weren't making that much. Because this community that watches that show, they make a lot of content. Like they make a lot of sort of subsidiary content of the show. They make, you know, art and posters and music and stuff like associated with the show. I don't know what to compare it to. I'm sure there's, you know, some other fandom thing that this is like. But
like maybe people paying right-wing celebrities to do cameo videos to bother others.
In this
that
environment.
Sort of thing can happen.
Right. Yeah. Well, or it's like Star Trek or something, you know, where
right.
people like are, you know, live in these worlds, this universe. But I also found out he was from my hometown, or sister town. I'm from Allentown. He's from Bethlehem. So we got in touch, and he started making stuff for us. And then he went off on his own path. And I've always been trying to, you know, sort of mentor him as I've been mentored by, you know, people like Bob Odenkirk, who found us. Try to give, what do they say? Pay it forward.
Sure.
Do the pay it forward thing. So yeah, that's me and Vic.
The thing I really like about the comedy you do is it really, it doesn't feel like you at all care. Well, I don't want to say care, but that
I know
that
what you
you're
mean.
just not too concerned about the audience getting it on some level. And
yeah,
that's sort of the you know, back when I was in comedy was sort of the school of comedy that I came from. I mean, it didn't work out well for me, but you seem to make it work. And I mean, I mean,
it's a weird.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. And I wonder also, I'm curious too, because you know, you're about 10 years younger than me, and when you guys came out of film school, there was that was really sort of like at the beginning of. I mean, there was a lot. There was, you know, YouTube and just other video online, which didn't exist, you know, when I basically came up, and there was a lot of outlets for that.
Yeah. Let me take the first question first.
They're related, Tim. They're related.
Yeah, they are related. I'm going to see if I can just transition from one to the other without you even noticing.
Okay.
We're finding this whenever, you know, I agree. When we're making stuff, I usually, if it's me or Eric, or if it's me or Greg, we're really just making stuff for ourselves and for each other to laugh. And that's how we just don't think about the audience, ever. And we're not trying to not make anyone laugh. We're just doing what we think is funny, and not doing focus groups about, what's funny these days, So what happens is you get a lot of people that, as a lot of cult-y comedy works, you get things like when I was a kid, Mystery Science Theater was a big thing for me, where I felt like they were in my brain. They were making me laugh, and they were just dialed into what I thought was funny, or something like Spinal Tap. It was so specific and so well executed, and that's the kind of fans we have, who are just really just take it very personally and really connect with it. But when we put something like this out into the world, and it gets out into the mainstream, where you have big, mainstream outlets reviewing it, you realize that, there is not an appetite for this in a large part. Like, there's somebody watched the movie and reviewed it and said it was laugh free. And it was not, and it was like, intolerable. And how dare they, that kind of attitude. And it's something I can't really do anything about, but it is funny that, we're never trying to make something for a mass audience, not because we don't want a mass audience. We would love it if we just had, we were the most popular thing, but we just never want to sacrifice, what we want at the core of what we want to do. And so that's where it comes out. But for the people that love it, it connects to, I don't really understand why, or I don't understand how, to me, I watch and go, this is just funny. It's a comedy. There's, it's basically a bad guy, and he's slipping on a banana peel for 90 minutes, like core, comedy concepts. It's not that it's not that crazy to me, but apparently it is. And then this is a little more clunky to go into your second question, which is, yes, we've been able to directly, and this is partly why we're able to have an audience, where we put this movie out on Wednesday in theaters, in like 120 theaters, and thousands of people came out and saw it, and it did well. And the Magnolia, who put it out, was like, hey, we had a good night last night. Like, your fans came out and they had a blast. And so you can exist out there as a fringe comedian, or a sort of a alternative comedian or something, and do okay, because I don't know. I think like the idea of sort of a mass, like popular mass culture person, especially in comedy, seems kind of harder to figure out. I don't know if you saw that clip that was going around. It was the VMAs this year.
No.
And Sam, this is the craziest thing. I didn't watch who watches the VMAs that we know? Like nobody.
I was not aware that it was still going on, but I will take your word for it.
Well, they had this comedian come out to host the VMAs, okay? The host of the VMAs was this guy, and I'm going to say his name wrong, but it's like Salvador Pasquale, or he was like this kind of Andrew Dice Clay kind of comedian, like a very Italian, Jersey, dressed like a guy. He's walking down the street kind of deal, like real. And the thing is, he's a very popular comedian. He's got he's sold out Madison Square Garden, and he's on Netflix with a special, and he goes on the Today Show. But he came out just to host this thing, and you could tell right away that most of the people in that room did not know who he was. And you got to watch it. It's crazy. He starts going into like, just so you know, MTV has set up a safe space for people who are going to be triggered. And like that's kind of stuff. It's wild. And the VMA, especially the artists, like whoever, I couldn't tell you.
Hold on, we got a little clip of it. Let's play it. It's Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yeah,
Scalco.
Yeah.
Okay.
And God bless him. I don't have anything. But it was sort of that thing that like, who knows who's even famous anymore? Like,
right.
You know what I always love?
No, that's true. That is. I mean, I want to play this clip of him, but let's play this clip and then we'll talk about that phenomenon, because that to me, I think is that dynamic is what I think has been so helpful to comedy and to just broadly to entertainment. But here, hold on, let's just hear this for a second.
MTV, what they're doing is they notice that we're living in ultra sensitive time, right? So if you feel triggered or you feel offended by anything I'm saying up here or anything the musical artists are doing, they're providing a safe space backstage where you get some stress balls and a blankie. And also, Lil Nas X brought his horse, which will, horse is backstage, which will double as an emotional support animal. So if you'd like to talk to your ushers, they will send you back to where that's happening. Personally, I would remove you from the arena, put you in your car, and send you home, but they opted with the safe space.
Yeah, I
will defend Dave Chappelle till the day I die. But that's what I like about this. I just have to say is every time something like this does something, we both critique them from the left, I guess, and then we go into the last form of acceptable like ethnic comedy, which is, hey, I'm a goodbye asshole.
Well, no, anti-Italian racism is real and it's fine.
Hey, I've got a ridiculous 80s jacket on. Oh,
this guy just like is used to walking into venues where everybody shows up from Long Island, all due respect to Long Island, and just the idea of somebody on stage saying like safe space with like a little bit of like lilt as if it's like, we're on the same. And he must be used to like, I remember at one point, Benjamin and I and a couple of guys in Boston wrote for Anthony Clark. Do you remember him? He was a stand-up. And
I don't remember him.
Sort of southerny stand-up who was from Boston. And we wrote a joke, Pepsi Schmepsi, for him. I think that was the joke, and it just felt like he wasn't comfortable saying it. Nobody wanted to hear that. It was completely. So what's interesting to me about like what you do, and this is what I was getting at with the different sort of like platforms that exist now, even like Adult Swim, where you would have 10-minute shows, like that didn't exist on TV 15, 20 years ago, really. And right. And there's so many different ways in which to reach an audience that you can be very big in a community of people and have a huge career, and to provide a platform so that, sort of more mainstream stuff can see you. So you end up acting in, big films. That to me seems like it's created a whole host of opportunities, and we just have much better comedy and entertainment, broadly speaking, because of it.
Yeah. And we keep figuring out different ways of doing it. This is a new way of doing it, which is we can do a night where our audience is sent, mostly our audience can go out wherever they, in the 120 cities on Wednesday and spend this communal experience, almost like when you go out and do a live show, be around similar minded people. And some like Rolling Stone was like, why didn't they just cut this up into little small bits and put it on Adult Swim? Well, the evidence is that hundreds or whatever, tons of people came out to be together, and they all had this fun, different experience. It's like, it proved its own point that it worked, and that it did feel like a movie to see with an audience. And that's kind of not, comedies, I feel like we forget that they're really fun to see in a room together and play off each other's reactions to it. And more, we always say, like, you got to go see Skyfall, you got to go see Batman in the theaters because of all the visual effects. But I think comedy is when they're funny, and that's becoming a problem as well. But
Skyfall sucked.
are fun to see with a group of people. So.
Oh man, I remember the Skyfall saga.
Yeah,
Jesus
it
Christ.
was an ugly time for me.
I finally get time to
I was
myself,
mad. I was
and
mad for a long time. It kept me out of the theaters. This is the first movie I've been excited about since then because I'm so afraid.
Skyfall was so
I always go see the Mission Impossible movies in the theater because those they're very silly, but they deliver on what you want to see on the big screen. Tom Cruise jumping out of buildings and stuff.
Let me ask you this: what kind of comedy? You say Mystery Science 3000. What else were you into when you were young? And then dovetail 2-part question: does it hold up in your mind? Just comedy, just broadly speaking. Like my sense is that comedy does not is not durable. And I'm thinking even the stuff that I made, I look at and I'm like, that's not funny anymore. It's not even remotely funny.
I just want to know.
Comedy holds up that well. Generally, sorry, I did interrupted you.
Sorry,
please.
I just want to know who that Maniscalco bit was even supposed to be for. Like the teenagers watching MTV.
He made a little Nas X reference.
It's just not funny to them. And then if these kids think you're old and lame and don't laugh at you, then you're like, oh, triggered much, you snowflakes.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of issues with that, but
those kids were fucking triggered.
Go ahead.
I think there's a little bit of nostalgia and comfort in watching things that. I could probably watch Spinal Tap a couple times a year just because it's so entertaining and it's so meaningful to me. I mean, people ask what your influences are, and it's like, well, I was just a kid living in the 90s, in 80s and 90s in Pennsylvania. I had access to what everybody else had access to, but definitely Spinal Tap, definitely The Simpsons, Saturday Night Live, early Conan O'Brien. I was just like your average comedy nerd. The Zucker brothers. I mean, what was better than the Naked Gun movies?
Right.
Those maybe you're a little older than me and that didn't kill for you, but for me, I was just at the right age where that stuff was just more important to me than almost anything for a little bit. It was massive and I cared about it for, whatever reason. Just really resonated with me.
Why do you think comedy doesn't hold up in the same way?
Well, certainly a lot of comedy that's very, relevant to the moment. If you're going to watch an old episode of Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, there's probably not a lot of reason to do that. Or your show, whatever, any show that's talking about the news is not going to be that interesting. And comedy is mostly about surprising you and it's like watching a baseball game that you've seen already. There's not a lot of reason to do that. But the first time a joke hits, it's usually the best time because you're not expecting it. And so I guess that's why it might not age well. But some stuff ages just fine.
Yeah,
I think we tried to make Tim and Eric as a sort of an ageless thing,
right?
Because it was a nefarious, it was a nebulous kind of look to it. It looked like it could have been made 15 years ago or 30 years ago or what. But even that, I could look back on that and go, oh, this feels dated. And I didn't think it would, but of course it does. Everything feels dated at some point. It seems impossible to avoid that.
Well, the movie is Mr. America. Folks can go to MrAmericaFilm.com right now, and
in the United States right now. Unfortunately, the United States and Canada. We're working on some international deals, but I'm sure you have some international listeners, and
they can definitely use some type of proxy. And I have a feeling that they could go in and
these people know how to get around them.
Oh, they know how to get around all of that. Believe me, Tim.
But don't torrent it.
Yeah, that's right. Or at the very least, if you do, send a check to Tim.
Yes, direct.
Tim, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Big fan. Can't wait to see the movie. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Sam. Great talking to you. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully. Bye.
Just thinking of the relevance of Bill Maher asking Pauly Shore whether or not he supported like PNTR with China or something.
One of the things that when I saw this, I was like, the thing that I like about this, in fact, if you see if you can go to like Amazon right now and search for Who's the Caboose. And because one of the things I really like about the work that Tim does is that it has its own logic that does not necessarily fit outside of that world on some level. And like I said, like I did a similar thing to far less success, with far less success. And I think is it up there? I think if you watch the trailer. Now understand, the movie came out in 1996. I pause it for 1 second. And so this is what I thought at the time in terms of like marketing. Like, okay, we did the movie. And then 8 years later, we did the sequel, pilot season, with the same characters. This trailer is going to take place like 5 or 6 years after that, which is when I shot it. So I think I shot this in 2010 with Dorsey in our first office for this show. And the idea was like when we first moved into the office, so it must have been like probably 9 years ago. And I thought, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it as if my character in the movie got a hold of the footage and was selling it on his own to people, and he was being sued by the like movie association, and that this was a deposition that was prepared for that. Like, and now when I say this out loud, I realize it sounds insane.
It's like kind of a lot.
Like the idea that this is a good way to sell this movie is ridiculous, but it made perfect sense to me. And I'm like, this is funny. But it was really, I mean, you watch it and I realize like it was funny to me, but I can't see how
There's some growth here.
Anybody could possibly
I appreciate the
get
growth.
what I was doing here. But that's what I did.
Yeah, I
They'll
did
watch
not
it,
get
and
it
then it will be
the
a
first time that
fake
I watched it.
deposition, and then I mean, actually, we should really prepare
But
the inventory.
It was
because
consistent with the show. Here, watch. You're not very good at this. You're not asking good questions. I mean, I've actually been a star in multiple documentaries, and you're not good at asking questions.
This is not a documentary. It's a legal deposition. You're being sued.
Right, legal deposition, sued. Okay, yeah, that part I knew.
What job do you have now?
Now, well, actually, it's funny that you should say that, because 15 years ago, I had multiple jobs. I was a comedian / performance artist / artist / writer, actually, and director back in New York City. That's actually what the documentary was sort of about.
I like working with Susan here because it gives her a chance to, work with me and do stuff that's more pure.
That's actually back when I was dating Susan Underman. Yes, the Susan Underman, the famous Susan Underman. Before she was famous, before she moved to Los Angeles, California. Are you interviewing her for this? Because she will probably want to talk to me.
I love Max, but my manager says I have to go out there, so I've got to go out there.
But Hollywood, I don't like that scene because there's a lot of losers and winners.
People read, oh, you get $100,000, but you don't get $100,000. Think you make money in here? You don't make a dime, man.
Hi, I'm Gwen, Tina Robinson. I met you at the Disney thing.
I got her with Creative Artists Agency. You're welcome.
My pilot quote is now up to $78,000.
How about the other night, huh? How about those ladies? They were doing all right here and here.
Stacy Papadooski, Stacy Papadooski, yours, Stacy Papadooski.
It's all in a documentary called Who's the Caboose. I know, dumb name. It wasn't my idea, but I was going to sell some copies.
That's why you're being sued. We've put out a DVD.
Oh, you put out a DVD of Who's the Caboose. Oh, good. You know what you should do? Think about it. This is my idea, but you should put it on something called iTunes.
You've done that.
You put it on iTunes. Okay, good. That's okay. Who's the Caboose is on iTunes and DVD. All right. Am I going to be making any money from that? Okay, so it doesn't make any sense No one could possibly understand that for some reason we've cut in, and the deposition has absolutely nothing to do with the movie. In fact, takes place 20 years after the movie.
That was remember when I used to do you as like Ralph Cramden sometimes, or you just be like, Alice, when we do the 20 years from now court deposition scene on the film that most people haven't seen to begin with, we better stock up on the DVD.
You know what movie I want to see is a compilation.
Get ready for summer vacation, Alice, because they're going to be flying.
Exactly. The biggest problem I'm going to have is how am I going to get all the postage
The
to sell
real
these
problem
things?
is, Alice, is I don't know if this will spit all upstate. And the velocity of the amount of orders might be logistically problematic. When they see the deposition scene and the fake follow-up to the fake sequel to the movie they didn't see, those DVD boxes are going to go flying, Alice.
The movie I want to see is a webcam compilation of everybody who happened to upon that trailer without any background.
Yes, exactly.
Watch them.
Like, that, like, honestly, that could be the single worst trailer ever produced for anything on Amazon.
It has a lot of
I
quality.
mean, now that I have all the background, I appreciate it. It's like it's a grower, not a shower.
If I had the opportunity to sit with everyone who stumbled upon that trailer and explain it to them, I'm convinced that I would get like a 25% click-through rate. But as it stands now, I think it's probably somewhere around like 0.0005 who watch that trailer and go like, oh, I want to watch this movie. And then even after you watch the movie, you still can't understand the trailer. Right? You could watch the entire movie, then you could watch the sequel, which is not available anywhere, and you still wouldn't understand the trailer.
All I can tell you, Alice, is after they watch that trailer, start looking to where you want to go in Sardinia. Because it's going to be flying.
And now I'm too embarrassed to like call the people. Like, I don't even know how to get in touch with, like, I don't know how to replace it. So I just said, F it. Leave it up there. I don't care.
I mean, it's kind of a standalone piece in a way.
Oh, that's the thing. I wanted to create another sort of standalone sort of thing that was funny, and it was funny to me. It's just that was why I was getting to that point about what I thought was impressive about what Tim has done, because he's doing that, and it's funny and decipherable to other people.
Look, the real heads, they know. They like it. The Sam Seder completionists, you know who you are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. All right. We got to take a quick break and head into the fun half. We got a couple of clips to talk about and a couple more stories.
Got a late breaking Ben Shapiro clip.
Do we? We'll take a look at that in the fun half.
Also, Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom and counterintuitive anti-militarism that we hear about, is deploying more troops to Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
That's just been announced.
Because Hillary would get us in World War III.
He's bringing the troops home. I don't know why the left is so confused.
He's bringing them to another part of Syria, and the only function that they're serving in a positive role of Syria, they're not going to be there anymore. I don't know what's so angry.
I thought the point was you like... No,
wait. But now he's going to support Muslims, and I thought the left loved Muslims. It's very confusing.
Folks, don't forget to subscribe to the AM Quickie. It's now on its own feed. You can go to amquickie.com to sign up, or you can just find it on iTunes. You can find it on Stitcher, or what's the other stuff? Spotify. It's there. Try it on your Alexa. And if you try it on your Alexa, then, email us and tell us if you found it. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. And reminder, this program exists because of our members. Our members support this program to the tune of 90, I don't know what it's, in the 90s. I didn't get the report from accounting from the CFO this week. But your support as a member makes this show possible. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. And a reminder, lastly, knowing your dog's breed mix can help you provide a better quality of life. And the Embark dog DNA test is the best-in-class dog DNA test. It's developed by doctors and veterinarians. Embark tests for over 250 breeds and 170 genetic health conditions so that you can know what to watch out for your dog, how to feed your dog, care for your dog, make sure they have a happy, healthy life. And it's only research-grade dog DNA test kit on the market. To save 15% on a dog DNA test, go to embarkvet.com. Embarkvet.com. Use the promo code majority. Michael, today is Friday. That means that some other time during the week, it was Tuesday.
Indeed.
What happened?
Debate on China with Sagar and Jetty, and much more on TMBS. Check it out. Michael Brooks Show on YouTube, TMBS, and patreon.com/TMBS. Get your tickets to see us in Philly, November 23rd. They're starting to pick up again as we are almost a month out. TMBS is Wednesday next week instead of Tuesday, and Ryan Grimm is going to be in studio with us breaking down the race and the debate and probably talking drug war stuff.
Jamie.
This week on the Antifada, remember when I started talking about the contradictions and limitations of social democracy in one country, and everyone was like, what the hell is Jamie talking about? Oh, well, I brought in a very heavy hitter named Ross Wolf, two-time returning guest, to talk about the communist case for opening and ultimately abolishing the borders, and how only global communist revolution is going to enable us to avoid a descent into eco-fascism and horror in the long term. And it was a good conversation. I wanted to nail it, especially, you don't always get a do-over on things like that. So check it out if you're interested. Also this weekend, holy shit, tomorrow.
Oh, man.
Pardon my French, but I'm very excited. I had to take 2 CBD dropperfuls of CBD tincture last night to get to sleep. True story. It is the Goth Socialist Variety Hour at Littlefield, NYC, with the Antifada and Pod Damn America, as well as special guests Matt Chrisman, Virgil Texas, Leslie Lee III, and Comrade Barbie. And I'm really excited about it. So I hope that someone listening is going to come. I hope a lot of people listening are going to come.
Go to the show. Matt.
Any of you guys coming?
I'm going to be out of town. I almost was in town, but now I'm going to be out of town.
I was going to shout you out. I had a whole bit planned.
I wanted to go.
Next time.
He's secretly Comrade Barbie. Sorry. My bad.
Matt.
Yeah, Literary Hangover. I've done some recent episodes on James Fenimore Cooper and a feminist sort of answer to him in Liturmira Child's Hobomok. Also, I'm going to be talking about the largest witch hunt in American history, the Salem 1692.
What they did in Salem to the women was a disgrace.
It wasn't just 692, folks. Cotton Mather, corrupt. It's the worst cover-up ever. We're going to be talking about all that stuff, so look forward to that the next
Really,
couple
it
weeks.
was misogyny. It was an irrational outbreak of misogyny. If you look at history, it's pretty unbelievable.
Your brain's going to freeze like that.
Folks, see you in the fun half. Left is best. Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous, you're a little bit upset, you're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's a good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance, dance, dance.
Rand Paul.
I had my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
I think I might be a Nazi.
Agree.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me...
Hey, shut up! Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Fun half. Majority Report. You know what that's all about. Ladies and gentlemen, you understand what that means, right? Let me get on the phone situation here.
Hello, this is Mitt Romney.
I almost was like, wait a second, did I hit the button? Let's take a call.
It does
Call
sound
from a
very friendly.
210 area code.
Good afternoon, Sam. This is John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Yeah, I enjoyed your interview with Brad Miller on Wednesday. You referred to Dick Cheney's legal counsel from 2001 to 2005 and his chief of staff from 2005 to 2009 as Addison. I'm going to disclose his proper name with a Biden paraphrase. David Addington was a bad dude,
right?
And he ran a bad crew.
Addington,
okay.
You're right. I apologize for that,
right.
but thank you, John. I knew you would be listening, and you would.
Right.
You must be wearing orthotics, Sam.
What's
because
that?
you stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, here's another one. Fiona Hall is actually Fiona Hill, special advisor to Obama and Trump. Okay. All right. So enjoyed in the Miller interview, I enjoyed that you talked about the Office of Legal Counsel.
I think you'll find it was
essentially
Miller.
Yeah, Miller interview. Decision to essentially put the president above the law, and the two cases that are in the public spotlight this week, federal judges rebuked the OLC opinion. In the case before a federal judge in Manhattan, Victor Marino said the memos are only suppositions, practicalities, and public policy, as well as dire pictures of hypothetical scenarios, and not an actual case. Either way, these memos themselves interpretations of the Constitution do not bind the hands of a local prosecutor such as Mr. Vance, referring to Cy Vance, the DA in Manhattan. Still, this question of whether presidents can face state criminal charges has also never been tested, the judge noted. And in the federal case about gaining a grand jury testimony from the Mueller case, federal judge Beryl Howell also questioned a long-standing Justice Department memo that says a president can't be criminally charged. We had 3 impeachment debates. The first was published and clipped on December 4th, 2017, that was entitled, "What are the Chances of Trump Being Impeached?" I'm going to give a special shout-out to the producer who proclaimed Debate of the Political Titans. Second debate was an individual clip that was published on August 25th, 2008, and it was titled "Trump Headed Towards Impeachment?" The third was entitled...
Did you say 2008, or did you mean 2018?
Yeah, you're right.
All
you're
right.
2018.
Okay, thank you.
Simpatico there, buddy.
Well, I'm just going
to okay, the third was titled Trump Impeachment Debate Round 2 Fight, even though it was the third debate. That was published on March 21st of this year. So I think it's crucial for the Democrats to have a full investigation to all involved, and they should start with Barr, because as long as he's the Attorney General, we're going to have a hard time having justice applied. Democrats should put more pressure on him, and also he should be impeached also. I mean,
could not agree with you more. So apparently there's no debate number 4. I think Bill Barr should definitely be impeached. I mean, I think the first thing he should do is recuse himself from everything. Frankly, it appears like. I mean, it seems like his only job is to go around and tell Fox News to get in line and to look for conspiracy theories that will push back on the narrative that the Russians tried to interfere or interfered in the election in some manner for whatever reason. I don't know why. I mean, here's the other very strange thing, right? Why was this so important to Donald Trump at this stage to disprove that? Like, I understand why he was sending around people to go and get dirt on Joe Biden. But why? What did they hope to achieve with this? Maybe it was just some a broader conspiracy theory they could twist into it or something, or if they actually believed it. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, it's just, I think it's pure insanity, really. But I mean, Pence and Pompeo should also be investigated. Remember, 48 people served jail time for their role in Watergate. So one of your Hollywood buddies, Michael Ian Black, who seems very knowledgeable about Republican insanity when he was on his show about 5 years ago, he did a thread on Saturday about saying how Pence will resign and Nikki Haley will be the VP and will pardon Trump and run for president, and she'll run for president herself. I mean, I don't agree with that. But, he lists 6 senators that could possibly vote for the removal of Trump. I agree with about 5 of them, and I added 15 more senators from the cult of Trump party. I know you're still sticking to your guns with the consensus opinion that Trump will not be removed from office, and maybe you're right. But people's main interest is saving their own political skin, and their main commitment is to their families and to their friends. And if and when polling starts to get ugly for the cult of Trump party, senators, everything could change with these senators. So,
yes, I agree with that. But when I say that I don't think there's going to be any Republican senators who, if they have the opportunity to vote to impeach Donald Trump, the reason why I don't think they're going to do it is because Donald Trump still commands, as far as I know, and you would have a better sense of this maybe than I would, at least 85% approval rating in the Republican Party. It could be higher.
Yeah.
And they don't care. They do not care. They don't care. I mean, look, I referenced this article in the Wall Street Journal today. You have farmers saying, like, I don't know if I can afford to vote for Trump. What? Like, you're going to pay? You're just not sure how much you're willing to pay to vote for Trump? For what end? Like, what material benefit are you getting? And I mean this in a very wide sense. The only possible material benefit that they're getting is that he's thumbing their nose at the libs and the feminazis and the Muslims. You have towns where people there's no immigrants there, but they're deathly afraid of being overrun by them. I mean, this is, I don't see that they're going to go like, well, yeah, he's completely mishandling the process of, allowing congressional oversight, or he was digging around. Joe Biden is dirty, and everybody knows that, they don't care. I just don't think that, I don't think the polls are going to move on the Republican side significantly at all, frankly, in terms of his favorability rating. And that's basically what it is. And I would say, even on top of that, they're afraid of getting primaried. And if not this time, the next time. And that's what dictates what these Republicans do. So.
Yeah, I mean you have a good point. I mean, and for people like a Jim Jordan or Meadows or Matt Gaetz, I understand. I mean they don't have to worry about anything. But I mean, like Cory Gardner yesterday when he was trying to answer the question and he kept avoiding this, and for like 6 minutes, and he was asked the same question over and over. I mean, he's down by 10 points.
But dude,
I mean, what is he doing?
That's the thing. That's why impeachment. I've been saying for some time, maybe not as early as you. I can't remember. You would have a better sense of that. But this is the bind that it puts Susan Collins in, Cory Gardner in, McMaster in Arizona, the whole McSally. This is the bind that they're in. They are between literally a rock and a hard place. They have the normal people on one side saying, "What's wrong with you?" And then they also have their Republican base, and they're going to lose either way. And they know this, and that's why they're going to spend 8 minutes to answer a direct question and then just sort of mumble the answer because they don't want to answer it. And the dilemma they're going to have, and this is why I'm still very skeptical at the idea that McConnell is going to have a vote. My bet is going to be that if it ultimately gets to, if articles of impeachment show up at the Senate, my guess is McConnell's going to say, this process has not been done properly. Therefore, I'm not going to have a vote. I was definitely on board with having a vote. That was my job. But you guys haven't met the requirements, and so no vote. Because if they do have a vote, Cory Gardner is toast. If they do have a vote, Susan Collins is toast. Because they're going to have to come out, and they're going to offend somebody. So appreciate the call, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
Bye. John's going to be very excited because I interviewed Naomi Klein yesterday, and I don't know that I said his name, but I referenced him in the context of the conversation.
Say, now, Naomi, on August 2nd, John then called in and anticipated that Cory Gardner would have a bypass. That has not come to pass.
The story out today that billionaires are paying a lower effective tax rate than the working class in this country. And I think it was something like 23% versus 24%, something to that effect. I'm not sure.
God damn it.
All taxes combined relative to their income. That would include sales taxes, and et cetera. And that is why Rand Paul, when he hopped on The View today, got laughed at. It wasn't because Rand Paul was introducing, it wasn't just because of his mock turtleneck that he's wearing. It was because of what he said.
And the middle class.
But we have massive taxes here, but we don't get any free stuff. We don't have free health care. Well, our public education system is a problem.
We have a
Seems
different,
like the only people that get free stuff are the very, very wealthy.
We have a different form of taxation in our country. Ours is much more progressive. So we've taken the poor off of the rolls. They don't pay income tax anymore. Most people below $50,000 don't pay any income tax. The top 1% in our country pay 40%.
Our audience says that's not true.
Well, the IRS statistics say that the top 1% in our country pay 40% of the income tax, and that those making less than $50,000.
Donald Trump doesn't pay any income tax.
Let me ask you this, because and the middle class.
Well, look, I mean, here's the reality is, and this is the trick that you will hear conservatives do. Like when you look at the dollars, they will talk about the dollars that come in on the income tax, right? Because they don't. Now, we don't call the wage tax income tax. Which really, it doesn't matter. It's a tax. But the reason why billionaires pay more actual dollars than other people is because the taxation works on a percentage. And they have so much more money that at the same percentage, it accounts for a lot more dollars. That's not the issue. The issue is what percentage of what they have, of what they've gotten for society, do they pay? That's the issue. The issue is everybody's supposed to pay a certain percentage of what they have for the government services and the benefits that they get from society. And the benefits that you get from society are measured by the amount of money that you get, as well as services. Because you would not be able to make that money. Bill Gates could not have made that money if we did not have a society around him to support him. That doesn't mean that everybody, this is not a hard thing to understand, right? Like every golden retriever is a dog, but not every dog is a golden retriever.
And he was also just lying. Like, did you hear what caused the uproar in the audience? It was when he said that people who make under $50,000 a year don't pay income tax.
Yeah. Well, they very well may not. If you got a family of 4, you may not pay an income tax. You pay a wage tax.
I mean, I make way less than $50,000, and taxes are a huge bite out of my income.
As a single person, families might.
They're not necessarily income taxes.
Right.
They are your taxes on your wages. I mean, he's just taking a specific. You know what else? You know what? People who make $50,000 a year less, they pay almost nothing in capital gains tax.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I'm not paying any taxes on all the properties I own.
Exactly. You don't pay any. You're getting away like scot-free.
And plenty of people who pay $50,000 do pay income tax. I mean, I would be very interested to get. I think some people don't. But
this is the only graph that you need to see from the New York Times. Look at this. It's just crazy. It is taxes on the wealthiest people have now dropped to the lowest point that they've been in 70 years.
I mean, you see how that graph is flattening out, basically becoming less and less progressive over time. Imagine what an actual flat tax would do to that.
Right.
Oh my God. Like, you guys always say it's going to be hard to get people on board with the idea of a global proletarian revolution. And then you show me graphs like that.
Well, it's going to be hard to show everybody that.
I don't know I ever said that, but okay. And these graphs, unfortunately, have been looking like that for like 40 years.
Let's go to this clip of Ben Shapiro, shall we? This is a late-breaking clip. My first question is Ben Shapiro in the Witness Protection Program? Why does he keep shooting his videos in different locations all the time, but with seemingly these big rigs?
My second question is he Damien? And it's a very overdone joke, but Jesus Christ.
He is concerned about something that is not a problem and then threatens to do something that we all know he won't do. And there's so many different ways in which to laugh at this video. But here it is, Ben Shapiro in, I don't know where he is. He's like, maybe is he like an interrogation room or something, but with a microphone. Here's Ben Shapiro.
In other words, if you're a church, you're not infringing on anybody's rights. You're just saying you can't come here for your marriage. Go to the church down the street. You're a religious school. You're saying, listen, you want to learn about gay rights? Go to the public school down the street. Okay, you want to learn about gay rights? You can just go to that secular atheistic crossroads school in Santa Monica. Like, enjoy yourself. That's your problem. Go enjoy. Fine. You're not infringing on anybody. Your mere existence is an infringement, according to Beto O'Rourke. The institutional existence is an infringement on liberty, according to Beto O'Rourke, and you must be shut down. You want a culture war in this country? You damn well have it, Beto O'Rourke. You want a culture war in this country? You want this country to come apart at the seams? This is how you do it. Because I promise you, if you come to tell me that you're going to indoctrinate my kids in particular policy, and that I can't pull my kid out of the school and send my kid to a school I want to send them to, that I can't go to the church or synagogue that I want to go to, and if you make that national policy, not just California policy where I can move, but national policy, people are not going to stand for that. They're not going to stand for that. And if you send a truant officer to remove my child, I have two choices at that point, right? If I have no place to move because you've now made this national federal policy, I now have two choices. One is to leave the country utterly. Two is to pick up a gun. Those are the only choices that you have left me. And now people on the how could you say stuff like that? How could you be so extreme? It's not extreme to defend the fundamental rights the Constitution was created in order to protect. These rights pre-exist government. My right to raise my child in my faith is my right. That is a First Amendment right. There's only one reason the government exists, to protect those rights.
Listen.
Alpha
This
Ben
guy's
Shapiro.
got his pants in a bunch here. First of all, he is completely mischaracterizing what Beto O'Rourke said. And this is the little sort of shell game they're playing. Now, Ben Shapiro, enjoy your trip out of the country. Well, I don't think we're afraid of you taking up arms.
I would love to see him try.
But even if you do, the issue is not whether you have a right in your church or yeshiva to in some way discriminate against people because they are gay. The issue is whether the government should finance that. And how does it finance it? It provides services that your institution uses in our society, and you want those institutions to use them for free. Here is the clip that that Ben Shapiro is so angry about and talking about the civil war that's coming or the mass exodus. Here's the clip. I want you to listen carefully if he's saying that these institutions should be outlawed or you should be forced to not discriminate against people because of their sexual orientation.
Question. This is from your LGBTQ plan, and here's what you write. This is a quote. Freedom of religion is a fundamental right, but it should not be used to discriminate. Do you think religious institutions like colleges, churches, charities, should they lose their tax-exempt status if they oppose same-sex marriage? Yes.
There can be no reward, no benefit, no tax break for anyone or any institution, any organization in America that denies the full human rights and the full civil rights of every single one of us. And so as president, we're going to make that a priority, and we are going to stop those who are infringing upon the human rights of our fellow Americans.
There it is.
Congressman.
So it's just a question. Like, you're allowed to do it. It's just that you don't get free use of society's work and labor and efforts and investment. You don't get it for free. That's it. You have to pay like everybody else. If your institution is going to discriminate systemically against people because of attributes that we as a society have decided you cannot discriminate against, then you're just going to lose your free coupon to all the services that this country provides. You're going to have to pay for the military and the police and the fire department. You're going to have to pay for the water that comes into your institution. You're going to have to pay for the electricity and for the infrastructure and the roads that allow that. You're going to have to pay for the schooling that educates your employees. You're going to have to pay like everybody else.
I'll take up guns.
You're just not going to get your special status, which frankly, like, I think there's like, I'm not even quite clear on why we do that anyways. I mean, if government is not supposed to recognize religion, why are we giving you special deal?
Why are we giving the IRS the power to recognize what's a religion? Like, that was the crazy part of one of many crazy parts of the Scientology documentary that I just watched.
Well, the problem is because I don't know how you define religion. Here's the easy answer. You got to pay taxes like everybody else, period. Just because you're religious does not mean you get a free ride.
I do find it somewhat ironic that baby boy Beto thinks he can revoke tax-exempt status from the Catholic Church as president, but not pass single-payer health care.
Indeed.
Well,
and
maybe
also that nobody asked.
Maybe with that extra, with the extra cash that comes in.
Well, that's a good point, though. And also that, nobody, I mean, granted, Bernie's a frontier candidate. Beto is not. Shade. But you're not going to hear a whole, people are focusing rightly on the merits of what he said, which he's absolutely right about, not on an orgy of, how are you going to do that? How's that going to pass Congress? How are you going to do it?
Right. I mean, it's quite obvious. And to make it about you're forcing people to do stuff because you're not giving them a tax break. I mean, just contemplate.
If I don't get taxes upset, that's how many revolutions were fought, though. I mean, if you even go into like everything from Burkina Faso to, you know, every corner of the world, it was a lack of tax breaks.
There you go. I mean, honestly,
the Salt March was about tax breaks on salt.
Hey, the Boston Tea Party.
Well, that wasn't even about a tax break, though.
They didn't want a tax. They wanted a tax break. They didn't want a tax on the tea.
They wanted, we would like representation if we're going to be taxed, which would be the Puerto Rican case.
It was
or the Virgin Islands case.
Ultimately about smuggling and contraband and
That
being
is
able
true.
to have,
Yeah.
being able to.
Dude, why are you checking our ship so aggressively? Screw you, dude. We pay taxes. We have a right to be involved in contraband.
So Bernie is, from all accounts, feeling great, from what I understand. They do have like 24/7 media out in front of his house capturing images of his like Ford Fiesta as he pulls away every day. Is it a Ford Fiesta or whatever it is? I personally think that
something efficient.
It has a
is
Bernie bumper sticker, though.
Extremely helpful.
Swag.
For people to see a presidential candidate driving a subcompact Ford
And
car.
even for what it's worth, I mean, his house, the man lives a very lives a good, modest lifestyle.
Well, there are people who think he should be walking everywhere. So,
but here is a message that he delivered, which I think is really powerful. I think it's one of the best videos in some level that he's put out. And there's two clips of it. Let's start the first one. Is that 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes. Yeah.
Engaged in just, permeated my mind. And I want all of you to understand that the day is going to come when 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're going to be talking to your kids and you're going to be
Pause it
talking
for
to
1
your
second.
grandchildren.
I'm sorry. Go back. This is when he's talked about how in the course of his having a heart attack, he appreciated the fact that he has health insurance and the idea of where would you be without health insurance, as millions of Americans are. Where would you be with health, even with health insurance, looking at tens of thousands of dollars of bills? And so he's basically saying this is why we need to make Medicare for all happen. And then he has this to say about that.
So what happens if somebody had no health insurance, who felt the pain in his or her chest, or felt really sick, and said to themselves, do I really want to go to the doctor or the hospital because I don't have tens of thousands of dollars to pay for the medical bills that I'm going to incur? How many people are in that position? How many people have died because they don't get to the doctor or the hospital when they should? And it made me feel even more strongly the need for us to continue our efforts to end this dysfunctional and cruel healthcare system which leaves so many people uninsured, underinsured, causes bankruptcy, lowers credit scores for people who owe medical debt. It is an insane, wasteful, bureaucratic system based on the greed of the healthcare industry. So I got to tell you that even as I sat and lied down in that hospital bed in Las Vegas, this issue of the struggle that we are engaged in just, permeated my mind. And I want all of you to understand that the day is going to come when 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you're going to be talking to your kids and you're going to be talking to your grandchildren and looking back and say, you know what, I was involved in that struggle that finally brought healthcare to all Americans as a human right. That's what we're trying to do. So be proud of the efforts that we're making, understand the enormous opposition that we're facing from the drug companies and the insurance companies, but we are going to win this struggle. History is on our side.
All right, and then and play the second clip too.
he is the most on-message person that has ever lived. He
He's
just had a
coherent.
heart attack, and he's talking about giving health care to everyone. Beautiful.
He's committed. He's real.
Our job is, despite all of that, is to stay focused on the real issues that impact the American people. And I know it's not easy because this particular campaign, we're taking on everybody. We're not only taking on Trump and the Republican establishment, We're not only taking on the Democratic establishment, not only taking on Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies, fossil fuel industry, military industrial complex, prison industrial complex, the corporate media that so often refuses to deal with the real issues facing this country. That's what we're taking on. But at the end of the day, if you're going to look yourself in the mirror and you're going to say, look, I go around once, I have one life to live. What role do I want to play? And that role goes far deeper than just defeating Donald Trump. Of course, we have to do that. It speaks to the need to create the kind of country that we can become, where people are working hard to serve each other, to understand each other. That is the country we can become. We really can. But we have to have the courage to take on some enormously powerful special interests.
I mean, that's spoken like a guy who, I think, that age, you have a heart attack, contemplate your own mortality, and you think like, what am I going to spend the rest of the time and that we have on this earth doing in terms of dedicating your life to it. And I think that's pretty impressive. And next week we're going to see him at the debate. Who knows what else we will see in store for us next week.
May I just add, I'll always add the stop effing around. This is a totally unique opportunity to elect Bernie Sanders part. But Cardi B has just said, it's a little tricky now that he's had a heart attack because people have been trying to paint Bernie as like this little scrawny old man, which is crazy. When I met him, he was actually pretty strong and tall. He's 6'1". Wow. I don't feel like because he's had a heart attack, it's a problem. I have asthma. If I have an asthma attack, is my career over? I don't like that.
There you go.
Comrade Cardi B.
Here is Donald Trump's pick for a lifetime position on the D.C. circuit. Her name is Naomi Rao. The National Women's Law Center summarized Rao's college writings on race. She once wrote in an article that in this age of affirmative action, women's rights, special rights for the handicapped, and welfare for the indigent and lazy, elitism is a forgotten and embarrassing concept. She called affirmative action the anointed dragon of liberal excess and claimed that Yale, quote, drops its standards only for a few minorities. She's probably not aware of the legacy program. She also made dismissive statements about those who critique racism and sexism, arguing that the myths of sexual and racial oppression create hysteria and finally lead to the formation of some whining new group.
Sounds perfect.
Perfect.
We love Hindus. We love it.
Is she Hindu?
I don't know. That's just saying she's South Asian. I can imagine Trump getting to the point.
All right. Well, here is Durbin questioning her on the judiciary lifetime appointment, folks.
And I just cannot reconcile something which is cringeworthy and idealistic. How do you reconcile those things?
Well, Senator, I think I had a kind of idealism about racial relations. I went to a school that was very diverse. I had friends from all different backgrounds, and as growing up as an ethnic minority, I guess, as it were, I was inspired by Martin Luther King's vision, right? That we should be judged by the content of our character and not the color of our skin, and maybe that does seem idealistic and naive today, but that was inspirational to me when I was starting college.
Ms. Rao, I would really struggle to reconcile what you said about racial oppression as a myth with the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Pretty hard to cite Martin Luther King and then say simultaneously.
Oh, really? That's because you nailed it. But you and Durbin are both part of the liberal elite that want to keep people of color on the plantation. You just hate anytime somebody thinks independently for themselves. You go get them, chutney girl.
Oh, my God. Oh, jeez.
Judge them by the content of their bank account and character, and not by the color of their skin.
Are we sure the anointed dragon of liberal excess isn't a direct quote of Martin Luther King?
That's exactly what it is.
She does have a way with words.
There was a time in 1940 where racism was kind of bad, but by the time you get to 1970, it's all backlash.
I think the former writings of, like the college writings of conservatives, or even liberals for that instance, are interesting reading. Like Tom Cotton's at Harvard are still up there, and one of his first ones is about how the internet won't have much of an effect beyond like the certain news gathering thing.
Missed it by that much. That's actually what I used to say as a joke to people. Like, this internet thing, I think, is probably going away.
People people like to make a lot of everybody's credentials, but especially of Cotton's, and he just does not seem bright to me. No matter how many
speaking
degrees.
of, like, I mean, look, the reality is, and no one who has even an iota of exposure to the college admissions process would tell you anything different. But if you come from Arkansas, your chances, if you get good grades, of getting into Harvard, much higher than if you come from New York State or New Jersey.
I was accepted into New York University for graduate school from North Dakota, despite only having like a 3.2 GPA.
What?
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
Yeah, there you go. Classic.
However, if we don't help our white brothers and sisters from the Dakotas, they'll be eliminated.
This is pretty nuts. So PG&E is the energy company in California. Some of the wildfires, I know, and I think maybe when I was in Vegas last time, and I think we'll have the opportunity to talk to more lawyers about this in next week when I'm in Vegas, or 2 weeks. They have not done the proper upkeep that they need to do for their transformer stations that they have throughout the state. And the implications of that are that they occasionally blow up. And when they blow up, they start forest fires. I don't know if they blow up is the right word, but that's basically it.
Yeah, that's the technical term.
And they have, and I think it may have just ended, or at least partially ended, but they basically started these massive blackouts without giving people much warning, 4 or 5 days, because their system is just simply not up to snuff. Where has all that money gone, one might ask? Well, apparently they gave billions of dollars out to their shareholders in basically stock holding. I mean, this is the problem, where you just have these companies that are basically providing for profits and not providing for the basic services they have. I mean, so this is when people talk about nationalizing companies like this, and, you know, maybe making it, 4 regional quadrants. I don't know how you would or do it. I would imagine there's a million different plans of doing it. But the problem is that we have a couple of things happening here. Global warming is making the margins much thinner for companies to get away with this. And when they're faced with the choice of what are we going to do? Are we going to pour money back into our infrastructure, or are we going to just make sure that we get the largest amount of profits, up our stock prices, we all get paid? They're choosing the latter. And there's no reason why this can't be a not-for-profit company. You get rid of the shareholders. You get rid of, the C-suite benefits that they're getting. And you simply eliminate the profit motive. You have the government operate it.
Yeah, can you imagine if this happened in a nominally socialist country? The uproar that would ensue?
Well, there's quite an uproar in California. It's just that there is no sort of mechanism for their outrage, and I think it's like just hard for people to say like what we need to do is we need to nationalize this, or we need to have some type of state or local or federal takeover.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know, the usual cast of characters who would hold it up as an example that socialism doesn't work. So maybe it's time to hold this up as an example that market capitalism doesn't work.
Yeah, this is efficiently allocating resources. There's another thing we might not be considering here.
And they spend a lot of time on drinking and cleaning and doing things, and they don't have any problem. And when it is, it's a very small problem. So I know everybody's looking at that to that end, and it's going to work out. It's going to work out well.
There you go.
Well, at least Netflix, Instagram, Facebook, Lyft, and YouTube still have power, according to the map.
Oh, yeah. They've been a little bit selective with who they're going to shut power off, or at least who they're going to keep it on for. Let's put it that way.
Welcome to the future.
Exactly. Let's do one more Donald Trump video. He's out in Minnesota, not having many people attend his. Yeah, let's do this.
You know, I never say this. I don't think I've ever said it in a speech, but maybe they'll find out if I did. Then they'll give me Pinocchios. He said it before, but I don't know if I ever said it. But you know, I make, as president, about $450,000, right? I give it away. No, wait. I don't care. I never hear anything. Can you imagine if I didn't? I give it away to, you can only give it. You can't keep it. You can't actually make a gift. You can give it to your different agencies. So I can give it to health, I can give it to transportation, I can give it to military, but I give it away all the time. Now, and if I ever did, but it's $450. If somebody stays from, let's say, a Middle East country in one of my hotels, and we charge him $392.53 for staying, and I never heard of the guy, and I don't want to hear about him. They say Trump is getting rich off our nation. I lose billions being president. I don't care. It's nice to be rich, I guess. But I lose billions. If somebody rents a room someplace and they pay me 2 months in rent or hotel fees, I never heard of the people. I never know who they are. They say emoluments. Nobody ever heard of the word emolument before. Emoluments. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
You know what Trump is doing there, right? He's getting ahead, of one of the articles of impeachment. I mean, that's what he's doing.
Well, it's nice to see that he's back on his bullshit, seemingly having refilled his Adderall at least.
No, but that's an interesting. It's funny because all this other stuff, they just come up with their own counter narratives and conspiracies and everything. This is like super specific. This is, I do not know who is checking into my hotel. Like you can actually super simplify that one. That is like, they come from the Middle East. I don't know who they are. I don't know. He's saying in his weird way that there is a wall between his business and the White House, which is great comedy. But that's just interesting.
Does no one remember when I had the table full of fake papers?
Right, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Empty notebooks.
Exactly.
I made a whole show.
But you notice how it's like, it isn't like, I want to know what they were doing in Ukraine because other people were flying there. This was just like, people check in my hotels. I don't know who they are. That's like a little bit more.
I give away $450,000 and make $300.
Possibly a bit of a tell.
Possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I think they are very, very concerned about the impeachment. They are very concerned about losing these people. He's delivering this to his audience. And because they're afraid now, they're on their heels and they're on the defensive. And that is a good place for them to be. And of course, when you're Donald Trump, it wouldn't be a Donald Trump rally without reminding your supporters that there are women out there who are not white, and they are very, very uppity.
Where far more than 3,000 people died, saying some people did something. Big deal. Some people did something.
Pause it. He's talking about Ilhan Omar. People were anticipating him going to Minneapolis and attacking her, and here he is.
And what Ilhan was doing, just to clarify, is she was de-identifying with the attackers as a Muslim woman because everyone thinks she should own it.
She pleaded for compassion for ISIS recruits right here in Minnesota. Omar laughed that Americans speak of Al-Qaeda. Remember that tape? Speak of Al-Qaeda. But when we say something about the United States, you just don't say America with any intensity. Remember that? Representative Omar has a history of launching virulent anti-Semitic screeds, whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
She said the
Some of you may like
for
it.
Israel is all about the Benjamins. She said that pro-Israel lawmakers have an allegiance to a foreign country. Omar wrote that Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Did she write that? I don't think so.
Have such a person representing you in Minnesota. I'm very angry at you people right now. She is a disgrace to our country, and she is one of the big reasons that I'm going to win and the Republican Party is going to win Minnesota in 13 months.
He is quite convinced that, or at least they are convinced in the White House or in the campaign, that Minnesota is one of their biggest pickup opportunities. In fact, I think they would probably put it on the top of the list of states that they did not get in 2016 that they think they can get now, because it has been trending a little bit red, and that's been happening for a while, and because he has his favorite leverage point, which is to stimulate the racism, the anti-immigrant backlash in this state. That's what he's thinking. He may be right. He may be right. Time will tell.
Yeah, but there was good news in 2018 with the governor's race, where a Trump-like guy tried to run in there. So hopefully,
we'll see. All right, one final phone call, and then we're out of here. Folks, I'm sorry. We don't have time to take any more calls. You're calling from a 562 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Oh, yes, it's me. This is Che Guevara from Los Angeles.
Che, what's on your mind?
Yes, I have so many things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to apologize in advance for my accent. English is not my first language.
Well,
so if you need me to
no, you
to
sound fine. You don't have to
something,
apologize for your accent.
Awesome, great.
All right.
Yeah, I'll try to hurry up. Sorry.
Okay.
So many things. First, I'm just gonna pick one. This is the fun half. I could talk about Univision grip on the Hispanic community and how they inform the people because there's so many people just speaking. I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous.
No, go ahead. You're doing great.
There's so many people that only speak Spanish. So the way they give the information, they try to be unbiased. And anyway, I'm just gonna talk about something different. This is a prophecy, and it's kind of fun. It's a fun half,
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about the Simpsons prophecies, the predictions.
The Simpsons prophecies? Before. I'm not familiar with them.
Oh, like how they predicted Trump was going to be president.
Oh, how they predicted Trump was going to be. Okay.
Yeah, a bunch of different stuff, 9/11, and there's so many different issues that they've predicted correctly. There's this episode, especially that one that Jamie was talking about. In 2000, they predicted Donald Trump was going to become president. There's one thing that people don't talk about. That's that same clip, though. It's that Lisa Simpson becomes president, right? I'm a Bernie supporter. I love Bernie. I think he's the best politician that I have ever seen in my life. There's no other politician I've seen that fights for the people and has been fighting for the people for over 50 years. It's amazing what he's done, and I really hope he becomes president. But my prediction will be, using the Simpsons prediction, is that Elizabeth Warren is going to become president. Lisa Simpson, and even if you compare the two of them, Lisa Simpson is blonde. Elizabeth Warren is blonde, short hair, smart. I really hope Bernie wins, and my prediction would be it's going to happen in one of two things. Bernie's going to win the nomination, and he's going to choose Elizabeth Warren as VP. Something's going to happen, hopefully not, I'm touching wood. But I think he's going to drop out before the general election, or he wins. And right before being sworn in, he's going to drop out for whatever reason, hopefully not a bad one. And Elizabeth Warren is going to become president. That's one. Or Elizabeth Warren wins the nomination and she's going to beat Donald Trump. Because that's in the same clip. You could say that there's two predictions in the same clip. Donald Trump becoming president and Lisa Simpson or Elizabeth Warren, Lisa, becoming president,
All right. Well, I think it's a little bit of a stretch. We just saw that they also predicted Oprah Winfrey in 2020.
That was Boondocks. I made a mistake.
Oh, that was Boondocks. All right. Never mind. Maybe you're right.
What about AOC? I feel like she might be a better analog to Lisa because she's young and tries really hard and is really
She's not eligible
awesome.
for presidency.
No, I know, but like the Simpsons didn't specify what year Lisa was going to become president, right?
Yeah, I get your point. The prediction will be until 2024 when AOC could become president. I don't think Trump is going to last that long.
Can I make a request?
I believe they're going to go.
Can I make a request?
For the impeach.
That for every minute that somebody spends on the Simpsons theory, spend 1 hour phone banking for Bernie Sanders. Thank you.
And by the way, trying hard is not a bad thing. I'm so over the early 2000s Vice slacker, like you're only cool if you don't try or care about anything.
Sorry, it's only cool
caring
if you
about
don't
stuff
try.
is cool. Trying to make the world better is cool, and AOC is cool. Deal with it, Gavin.
It's a third way, actually.
Yes,
Caring
I love
is cool,
AOC.
but trying is.
Appreciate the call.
That's
you.
Dialectic.
Thank you.
We're the final caller.
Caring is good.
Of
trying is bad.
The week. Folks, on Monday, it is Columbus Day. Kids are off school. We're off the show. We will have new content for you. An interview I did with Dave Zirin on Ring of Fire, and then about 40 minutes of an interview I did with Naomi Klein yesterday. You will enjoy it. She has a new book out, and we will be back live on Tuesday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid.